Hi guys, hope you are having a great day today. So we are here to read a new story, which is The Old Clockmaker's Secret. It's in two parts, part one and part two. So we'll read both the parts and please enjoy the sound, and just let me know. What do you think about it? Okay, so let's start. Old Clockmaker's Secret, part one. The tiny village of Ashwood was famous for one thing, a magnificent clock tower that had stood in its center for more than 200 years. Every hour, its deep, melodic chime had echoed through the streets, reminding people that time never stopped for anyone. But hidden behind the clock tower, tucked between ivy-covered buildings, stood a small workshop. About its weathered wooden door hung a faded sign, Edmund's Clock Shop, time repaired with care. Shop belonged to an elderly clockmaker named Edmund. His silver hair matched the dust covering his shelves, and his hands, though wrinkled, moved with remarkable precision. Every morning before sunrise, he unlocked his shop, wound dozens of clocks, and smiled as each one sprang to life with a cheerful tick-tock. The villagers admired his craftsmanship, yet few ever entered his shop. Most people preferred modern watches and digital clocks. They believed Edmund's work belonged to another era. Only one person visited him regularly, a curious 12-year-old boy named Oliver. Oliver had lost both of his parents when he was very young and lived with his grandmother. Unlike the other children, he wasn't interested in games or expensive toys. He loved asking questions. Why do clocks tick? He once asked. Edmund smiled. They don't simply count time, he replied. They remind us that every second is precious. Oliver didn't fully understand, but he never forgot those words. Every Saturday after school, Oliver helped dust the shelves, polish brass gears, and organize tiny screws into wooden boxes. Edmund never paid him with money. Instead, he rewarded the boy with stories. Stories about inventors, stories about kings, stories about people who changed the world simply because they used their time wisely. One rainy afternoon, while cleaning the highest shelf, Oliver noticed something unusual. Hidden beneath an old cloth was a beautiful golden pocket watch unlike anything he had ever seen. Its cover was engraved with stars, moons, and delicate vines. What is this? Oliver whispered. Edmund's cheerful smile faded. For several moments he remained silent. Finally, he carefully lifted the watch into his hands. This, he said softly, is a promise. A promise? Edmund nodded. It belonged to my father. He gently opened the watch. Inside, instead of numbers, 12 tiny words circled the face. Hope, kindness, patience, courage, truth, love, humility, faith, wisdom, gratitude, forgiveness, generosity. Oliver stared in amaze. amazement. There aren't any numbers. There never were, Edmund replied. My father believed life shouldn't be made by ours, but by the virtues we choose. Oliver looked puzzled. Then how does it tell time? Edmund smiled. It doesn't. It reminds us how to spend it. Those words stayed with Oliver long after he returned home. Days turned into weeks. Winter arrived. Snow covered Ashwood and business became quieter than ever. One evening, Edmund began coughing heavily whilst repairing an antique grandfather clock. Oliver rushed to her. You should rest. Edmund shook his head. There are still clocks waiting, but you are ill. The clocks can wait, Edmund finally admitted with a smile. The people cannot. Over the next few weeks, Edmund grew weaker. The villagers noticed the shop opening later each morning. Some wondered if the old clockmaker might retire. Others hardly noticed it all. One cold December evening, Edmund called Oliver into the workshop. The fire crackled softly. Snowflakes drifted outside the windows. The old man paced the golden pocket watch on the table between them. I have repaired thousands of clocks, he said quietly. But there is one secret I have never shared. Oliver leaned forward. What secret? Edmund looked toward the enormous clock tower outside. Every gentleman, one person becomes keeper of time. Oliver frowned. I have never heard of that. Because it's not written in books. Edmund opened a small wooden chest hidden beneath his workbench. Inside lay dozens of journals. Some were over 100 years old. Each journal belonged to a previous clockmaker. My grandfather, my father, and now me. Oliver carefully turned a fragile page. Every journal described acts of kindness throughout the village. Farmer helping a neighbor after a storm, a child returning a lost coin purse, a doctor treating parents, treating patients who couldn't afford to pay. None of these stories mention money or fame, only kindness. Oliver looked confused. What do these have to do with clocks? Edmund smiled. The great tower doesn't keep this village alive. The people do. The clock simply reminds them that every day offers another chance to choose goodness. Oliver sat silently, trying to understand. Then Edmund spoke in an even quieter voice. When people become selfish, they waste their time. When they help others, they give time its greatest value. Suddenly the old man began coughing again, this time much harder. Oliver quickly poured him some water. Edmund, Edmund smiled weakly. I won't be here forever. The words made Oliver's heart sink. I don't want you to leave. Edmund gratefully placed the golden pocket watch into Oliver's hands. It isn't yours yet, but one day, if your heart stays as kind as it is today, it will. Oliver carefully held the watch against his chest outside the great clock tower struck midnight. Its 12 deep chimes echoed through the snowy village. Neither of them knew that before another sunrise, everything in Ashwood was about to change forever. So that was a part one. So now the part two. So now we are going to start with the part two. So that was was a part one. So the next morning, Ashwood awoke to an unusual silence. The great clock tower had never missed a chime in over 2 centuries, yet today there was nothing. No deep bell echoed across the village, no familiar rhythm greeted the sunrise. People stepped out of their homes in confusion. The clock has stopped. It has never happened before. Merchants delayed opening their shops. Farmers glanced nervously toward the tower. Children gathered in the square, whispering. Oliver ran as fast as he could to Edmund's workshop. He pushed open the wooden door. The shop was quiet. Every clock inside had stopped ticking. Edmund sat peacefully in his favorite chair, his hands resting gently in his lap. His eyes were closed, and a faint smile remained on his face. Oliver knew immediately his dear friend had passed away during the night. Tears filled the boy's eyes as he remembered Edmund's final words. It isn't yours yet, but one day. The entire village gathered for Edmund's funeral. People shared stories they had almost forgotten. He repaired my father's watch for free. He stayed up all night fixing our church clock. He gave my son his first pocket watch. For the first time, everyone realized how much the old clockmaker had quietly done for others. After the ceremony, the mayor unclocked in Edmund's workshop. Among the journals, he found a sealed envelope addressed to Oliver. In trembling hands, Oliver opened it. Inside was a simple letter. Dear Oliver, if you are reading this, my own time has come to an end. Do not be sad. Every clock must one day stop, but every act of kindness continues long after we are gone. In the bottom drawer of my workbench, you will find a small brass key. I opens it opens a hidden door inside the clock tower. There you will discover my greatest secret. Remember, the true keeper of time does not control the hours. He reminds people how precious they are. Oliver hurried to the workshop and found a tiny brass key exactly where Edmund had described. With the golden pocket watch safely in his pocket, he climbed the narrow spiral staircase inside the old clock tower. Near the giant gears was a small wooden door he had never noticed before. The key fit perfectly. The door creaked open. Inside was a tiny room filled with sunlight from stained glass windows. On the walls hung hundreds of framed photographs, faded drawings, handwritten letters, and newspaper clippings. Each one told the story of someone from Ashford who had changed another person's life through kindness. There was a teacher who secretly bought books for poor children, a baker who left fresh bread outside lonely neighbors' homes, a young girl who planted hundreds of trees after a terrible storm, a doctor who never turned away a patient. Every generation had ordinary people doing extraordinary things. In the center of the room stood a wooden plaque. Tree. Time is not made by the years you live, but by the lives you brighten. Oliver suddenly understood. The tower had never been about keeping time. It existed to remind every generation that their moments matter. Just then, the ancient gears groaned loudly. The great clock had completely stopped. Without its movement, the bell would never ring again. Oliver remembered everything Edmund had taught him. carefully examined the gears. One small brass spring had broken. He searched the workshop below and found Edmund's tools. Hours after hours he worked. His hands shook, his fingers became sore. Twice he almost gave up. Then he looked at the golden pocket watch. Its 12 virtues reminded him to keep going. Hope, patience, courage. Finally, just before sunset, Oliver fitted the final gear into place. For a brief moment, nothing happened. Then, tick, tick, tick. The enormous gears slowly began turning once again. The hands of the great clock moved forward. As the minute hand reached the top, the bell rang. One, two, three. Its beautiful sound echoed farther than anyone could remember. The villagers rushed into the square cheering with joy. The clock is alive. Oliver quietly stepped back into the crowd. He didn't seek applause. He knew Edmund wouldn't have wanted that. For the following years, Oliver reopened a little clock shop. People came to have watches repaired, but they always left with something more valuable than fixed clocks. They left with encouragement, with hope, with stories of kindness. Oliver continued writing in Edmund's journals. Whenever someone helped another person without expecting anything in return, carefully recorded the story. The collection grew larger every year. Children began visiting the workshop after school, just as Oliver once had. Instead of teaching them only how gears work, he taught them how character worked. A broken clock can be repaired, he often said, but wasted time can never be returned. As the years passed, Ashwood became known as the kindest village in the kingdom. Travelers noticed something different about it, but neighbors smiled at strangers. Shopkeepers treated everyone fairly. Children respected their elders. No one knew the secret hidden inside the clock tower except Oliver. He never revealed it because he realized the secret wasn't hidden in the room. It was hidden inside every person willing to spend their time making someone else's life a little brighter. Many years later, when Oliver himself had become an old man, a curious young girl entered the workshop. She noticed an old golden pocket watch resting beneath her clothes. Sir, she asked, why doesn't this watch have numbers? Oliver smiled exactly as Edmund once had. He gently placed the watch in her hands because, he said softly, life isn't about counting the hours, it's about making every hour count. Outside the great clock tower chimed once again. Its sound floated across the village just as it had for generations, and somewhere perhaps carried on the wind itself. Seemed as though Edmund's gentle voice whispered one final reminder. Every second is a gift. Spend it wisely, spend it kindly, and your time will never truly end. So, the moral of the story, life is not measured by how many years we live, but by the kindness we show, the lives we touch, and the good we do with the time we are given. Every moment is an opportunity to make a positive difference. So that was a story of old clockmaker's secret. Thank you.